Stand on London Bridge today, and 20,000 cars cross it every hour in near silence. 2 million people live within 10 miles of where you stand. But rewind 700 years, and you would have found a wooden bridge lined with shops and houses, so narrow that 2 carts could barely pass, built on 19 stone arches that churned the Thames into rapids below. Mud, smoke, bells, rot. Using cutting-edge AI reconstruction, we are about to walk you through every aspect of medieval London's daily life. From the merchants counting coin in Cheapside to the bodies swinging at Tyburn, the city that became England's beating heart. You wake in medieval London not to an alarm, but to church bells. By 1400, the city holds over 100 parish churches packed into a single square mile. St. Paul's Cathedral dominates the skyline, its wooden spire rising over 500 feet until lightning destroys it in 1561. But most Londoners never see dawn from comfort. A master craftsman in Cheapside might own a timber-framed house 3 stories tall, its upper floors jutting over the street in structures called jetties, each level stealing a few more feet of sunlight from the lane below. The ground floor serves as workshop. The family sleeps upstairs on straw mattresses, wool blankets their only defense against cold that seeps through walls chinked with mud and horsehair. No glass in the windows, just wooden shutters that trap smoke from the central hearth. In winter, you share your bed with fleas, lice, and perhaps a pig brought inside for warmth. A labourer's family crowds into a single room, 10 feet by 12, in the suburbs beyond the walls. Southwark, across the bridge, becomes a spillover for the poor, the criminal, and the sick. Rents consume half a workman's wages, you sleep on rushes, you own 2 sets of clothing. The smell of unwashed bodies, tallow candles, and human waste from the cesspit in the yard defines home. By dawn, tens of thousands rise in a city originally built by Romans for 40,000, now swollen to 80,000 souls pressed against walls that have not moved in 2 centuries. Breakfast is ale and bread. Everyone drinks ale, even children, because the Thames downstream from the city runs brown with sewage and tanners' chemicals. Brewsters, usually women, make weak ale in nearly every household. A loaf of maslin, mixed wheat and rye, costs a penny. White bread, called pandemain, is luxury. The working day begins at first light. London's economy runs on guilds. The mercers control cloth. The goldsmiths guard their craft on Cheapside, the broad market street whose name means market in Old English. The fishmongers dominate Billingsgate, where every morning boats unload herring, cod, oysters from the Thames estuary. By law, fish must be sold fresh the day it is caught. In summer, the smell at Billingsgate can knock a stranger flat. Butchers slaughter animals in the shambles near Newgate, letting blood and offal run into open gutters that drain toward the river. Tanners on the south bank soak hides in urine and dog feces to loosen hair. Dyers boil cloth in vats of woad and madder, turning entire alleys blue or red. If you are not guild, you are nothing. Apprentices begin at age 12, indentured for 7 years. They sleep in their master's shop, eat at his table, and earn no wages. Journeymen, having finished apprenticeship, work for daily pay but cannot call themselves master until the guild approves. A master's widow can inherit her husband's trade, but no other woman may join a major guild except as a brewster or silkwoman. Labour is hard. A carpenter works from dawn to dusk for 4p a day. A mason rebuilding St. Paul's after a fire in 1087 earns 6p. In 1381, after the Black Death has killed half of England, labourers demand higher wages. Parliament passes laws fixing wages at pre-plague rates. The peasants' revolt marches on London. Rebels kill the Archbishop of Canterbury at the Tower. King Richard II, 14 years old, meets the rebels at Smithfield and promises reform. He lies. By week's end, royal soldiers hang revolt leaders across the city. Step into a London street in 1300 and you walk on trampled mud mixed with animal dung, vegetable scraps, and the contents of chamber pots emptied from upper windows. City ordinances require residents to keep the street before their house clean. No one obeys. Pigs root freely through garbage. Regulations ban them in 1301 after swine kill a child. The ban fails. Enforcement fails. The streets remain thick with filth. Wooden channels down the center of each lane carry waste toward the river during rain. In dry months, the city bakes under the stench of rotting matter. You navigate by landmark. The Romans built the wall, 10 feet thick and 18 feet high, pierced by 7 gates. Ludgate leads west toward Westminster. Newgate opens to the road north. Aldgate points toward East Anglia. Each gate closes at curfew, locking the city until dawn. Inside the walls, streets wind without plan. Lanes bear names like Bread Street, Milk Street, Wood Street, marking the trades practiced there. The city is noise. Vendors cry their wares, metal workers hammer in open-fronted shops. Carts rumble over stones, church bells mark every hour. In 1285, Edward I orders lanterns hung outside every house on winter nights, creating England's first street lighting. Most ignore the order. After dark, the city belongs to cutpurses, drunks, and the watch. Thames Street runs parallel to the river, lined with wharves where ships from Flanders, Gascony, and the Baltic unload wool, wine, timber, and furs. The Hanseatic League, German merchants, controls the Steelyard, a walled compound with its own privileges. Italian bankers operate from Lombard Street. Jews had lived in the Old Jewry near Cheapside until Edward had expelled them in 1290. By 1400, London is the second city of the wool trade, funneling English fleece to Flemish looms. The wealth of England passes through these crooked lanes. So does every disease known to Europe. The medieval Londoner lives inside the church calendar. Sunday Mass is compulsory. Saints' days punctuate the year. Corpus Christi brings processions through the streets, the host carried under a golden canopy. Mystery plays performed by guilds dramatize scripture outside church doors. The goldsmiths stage the adoration of the Magi. The fishmongers perform Noah's flood. On St. John's Eve, midsummer, bonfires burn in every street. Families hang birch boughs and fennel above doorways to ward off evil. Christmas means 12 days of feasting for those who can afford it. Roast goose, boar's head, and frumenty, a porridge of wheat boiled in milk. The poor eat herring and turnips. Lent enforces meatless days. Fish prices double. Enforcement is uneven, but public butchering during Lent brings a fine or the pillory. The church owns perhaps a third of property in London. Monastic houses dominate entire wards. The Blackfriars, Dominicans in black robes, occupy a compound near the river. The Greyfriars, Franciscans, preach poverty while holding estates. Augustinians and Carmelites maintain their own precincts. Pilgrimages define religious life. Londoners journey to Canterbury to venerate the bones of Thomas Becket, murdered by Henry II's knights in 1170. The shrine glitters with gold and jewels. Chaucer's pilgrims depart from the Tabard Inn in Southwark. Closer shrines include the Holy Rood at Bermondsey and Our Lady of Willesden. Miracles are reported, cures claimed. The church also punishes. Heretics burn at Smithfield. The first execution for heresy occurs in 1401 under a new law called De Heretico Comburendo. William Sawtry, a priest who denied transubstantiation, dies in the flames. The city watches. Faith is not optional. Faith is survival in a world where death waits behind every symptom, every cough, every swelling in the neck. Marriage in medieval London is economic contract before it is romance. Families arrange matches to join wealth or secure trade alliances. A merchant's daughter brings a dowry, perhaps £10 and household goods. The ceremony occurs at the church door, not inside. The couple exchange vows before witnesses. The priest blesses the union. A feast follows for those who can afford it. Noble women marry at 15. Common women marry later, in their early 20s, often after years working as servants to save money for a dowry. Men marry when they can support a household, late 20s for craftsmen. Love exists, recorded in letters and wills, but duty comes first. Wives manage the household. They spin, weave, brew, cook, and raise children while also working in their husband's trade. A mercer's wife sells fabric. A baker's wife kneads dough. Pregnancy is constant danger. 1 woman in 3 dies in childbirth or from infection afterward. Midwives, untrained except by experience, deliver babies. Infant mortality takes half of all children before age 5. Parents baptize newborns within days, fearing the child will die unshriven. Large families are common among those who can afford them. The wealthy employ wet nurses, the poor nurse their own or watch children die. Contraception is sin, but herbal abortifacients circulate in whispers. Prostitution thrives in Southwark's brothels, called the stews, licensed by the Bishop of Winchester. The women are called Winchester geese. They serve rivermen, apprentices, and anyone with pennies. Venereal disease spreads unchecked. Old age is rare. A labourer who reaches 50 is ancient. Arthritis cripples, teeth rot, eyesight fails. There is no retirement. You work until you cannot, then you depend on family or parish charity. Almshouses provide beds for some. Most die in the same one-room house where they were born. In 1348, the Black Death arrives in London aboard a ship from Gascony. Yersinia pestis, carried by fleas on black rats, spreads through the cramped city like wildfire through dry thatch. Victims develop swellings in the neck, armpits, and groin. Fever and delirium follow. Most die within 5 days. The city has no understanding of contagion. Physicians blame miasma, bad air, and prescribe bloodletting. They wear beak masks stuffed with herbs. Nothing works. By spring 1349, 200 Londoners die every day. The parish graveyards overflow. The Bishop of London consecrates emergency burial grounds. Smithfield fills with plague pits, bodies stacked in layers, barely covered with lime and soil. Across England, the plague kills between a third and half of the population. London's count drops from 80,000 to perhaps 50,000. Entire streets stand empty. Guilds lose masters faster than apprentices can replace them. Wages rise, rents fall, the social order cracks. The plague returns in 1361, 1369, and 1375. Each outbreak kills fewer, but the terror never fades. Other diseases are constant: sweating sickness, dysentery, smallpox, tuberculosis, and leprosy. Lepers are forbidden inside the walls. A lazar house at Mile End shelters the infected. St. Bartholomew's Hospital, founded in 1123, treats the sick poor. Medicine is primitive. Barber surgeons pull teeth and set bones. Apothecaries sell remedies ground from herbs, animal parts, and minerals. A cure for plague: drink powdered emerald in wine. For fever, tie a toad to your foot. When death comes, the body is washed, wrapped in a shroud, and buried within 24 hours. The wealthy are interred inside churches, their monuments recording names and trades. The poor go into common graves, unmarked, forgotten. In medieval London, death is not tragedy. Death is Tuesday. Walk through the city of London today, and you walk on 20 feet of medieval debris. Archaeologists excavating for modern basements uncover wooden drains, leather shoes, bone dice, and the foundations of houses burned in the Great Fire of 1666. The street plan remains medieval. Cheapside still runs east to west. The Guildhall, rebuilt many times, still stands on the site it occupied in 1411. St. Paul's Cathedral, redesigned by Christopher Wren after the fire, rises where the medieval cathedral stood for 6 centuries. The names survive: Bread Street, Milk Street, Ironmonger Lane. But the city those names described is gone. The plague broke it, the Reformation emptied the monasteries, the fire erased the wooden houses. What remains is memory preserved in parish records, guild rolls, and the bones dug from plague pits under office towers. Medieval London was a city of astonishing cruelty and accidental beauty, where an apprentice slept on straw and a goldsmith crafted reliquaries for kings, where the Thames ran thick with fish and thicker with filth, where 50 churches rang their bells every hour and bodies hung at Tyburn for stealing bread. It was a city that survived war, plague, fire, and revolt, rebuilt itself every generation, and refused to die. 80,000 lives pressed into 1 square mile. You cannot hear them anymore.